invite everybody and do kind of a refresher course on a bunch of different topics. And so Monica, Susan, and I are all gonna maybe introduce ourselves as we go. And so as we're going along, if you have questions, maybe put them in the chat. And then hopefully we'll have a bunch of time at the end to interact, answer questions, make any comments you think are needed. Yeah, and I think we're gonna go ahead. All right, Monica, want to progress the slide? Monica, go. Okay, so first this is our agenda. So we're gonna go over some program goals. We're gonna introduce the NOPP team. Susan will talk about grant management, reimbursements, and things like that. Really important, please pay attention. And then I'll talk about some efforts related to community outreach and sharing, and also surveys, and then Monica will go over some research related items, terminology, data, and some additional resources that are available to all of you. And again, we'll have some questions at the end if anybody has them. So as we go, put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself at the end once we get there. All right, next. All right, so we're going to briefly go over the program goals really quick. So answering producer-specific nitrogen research questions, improving producer profitability, improving commercial nitrogen management efficiency across Wisconsin, and reducing nitrates in surface and groundwater. So I think if any of you have been to any of our talks where maybe Monica's presenting data or we're talking about the program in general, you've heard about these goals. And as folks are more involved in NOPP, you're going to hear these more again. So I'm not going to dive into these a whole lot because I want to make sure we have time at the end. I'll introduce myself and then I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves. So I'm Lindsay Rushford. I'm with UW Extension, and I work on this program in particular with NOPP. And so I'm kind of doing the outreach side of things with the program. So if there's any questions really related to anything NOPP, you can bring them to me and I can help distribute them to the right person. But I'm going to be kind of your outreach person. Monica, want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Monica Schauer. I'm the NOPP Research Director. I'm a researcher in the Soil and Environmental Sciences Department at UW-Madison, and I work within Matt Ruark's lab, so I work closely with him on a lot of the data interpretation from this program. And I kind of am the data person and the technical support side of the program.
And I am Susan Mockert. Good morning, everyone. I am with the Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection, and I am the, I'm going to say NOPP program manager. Everyone else says NOPP. I'm going to try to get into that mindset. So I deal with the administrative piece of your grants. So the awarding, the contracting, the reimbursements, all of that goes through the Department of Ag. If you go to the next page, and I will go over what I'm going to talk about real quick. So I'm going to give you a few guidelines on the administration of your grant. We're going to look at a couple of program rules, the contracting, financial management and reimbursements, and reporting. Next, please. So the grants have to be for at least 2 years. If your project comes to us as 3 years or more, we adjust your contract to reflect that. So you don't need to, if you have a 3+ year grant proposal, that'll be what your contract is for. So you don't need to worry about what I'm going to say next quite as quickly. If you have a 2024 grant, you can request an extension of this grant for 1 year. It'll take the form of a contract amendment and will require an updated budget and work plan. If you have a 2025 grant, those are the contracts that are out being signed right now. We have added some language to the contract to simplify the extension process. For both 24 and 25 grants, you need to let me know by the end of December of this year if you would like to extend it, and I will work with you to make that happen. And I will also send out a reminder in the last quarter of the year to start moving those things forward as needed. Next. So contracting, I'm speaking just to the new 2025 contractees at this point in time. We had to send out offer of award letters to be signed this year due to a deadline with the emergency administrative rule, which expired on March 8th. We had to have everybody sign a document saying I'm in by March 8th. After that, I was able to get the full contracts out on Wednesday. I have 4 back in-house, so there are 5 still going through the signature process. I'm sure it's familiar to all of you since you just did it last week, and I apologize that I'm asking you to sign 2 different documents. If you have questions about that, let me know. Now I'm going to move into kind of trying to address some of the frequently asked questions regarding reimbursements and how to do it. Since you're right at the beginning of your cycle, 25ers and 24s, you can start now being detailed. It'll help you in the long run. So for items that you purchase in relation to your grant, keep invoices and receipts. Any bulk purchases of inputs, keep your invoice and receipt and make a note on the document of the acres and the amount used. Paid invoices, receipts for inputs, rentals, equipment, field day items. And the state cannot reimburse for alcohol. So any receipts from restaurants or catering need to be itemized. Again, these are all reflective of things that are already in your budget. So if it's not in your budget, let me know. And if you have time budgeted, that can be for field work or administrative work. A spreadsheet or a Word document that has who was working on what for how long, basically. And if you'd like more detail about that, let me know. Also, travel for state grants is reimbursed Department of Ag state grants is reimbursed at 51 cents per mile. We cannot reimburse travel at an hourly rate or at the federal rate. So if you do charge the federal rate for your private business, we will help you get there, but we can't go over the 51 cents per mile. And to make your life easier, I recommend ongoing tracking. Anytime you work on NOPP, just jot a note down of what you did. Nitrogen optimization, jot a note down of what you did and for how long, and that'll help you a lot when it gets to the reimbursement phase. Next, please. So how to pull together your reimbursement request. Again, you're going to have your organized receipts and invoice. Again, the bulk item receipts with a note on. I have found the handwritten notes on these receipts or a sticky note on the receipt when you scan it in is very helpful. A time tracking spreadsheet or Word document. And then you go to the web page. Monica, I'm going to grab the screen for a second. And you will find this document. Can you see it? Yes, okay. This is the reimbursement form. So you'll fill out the areas in yellow. You have the dates you're going to be working, the recipient name. You can fill out the total award, and I honestly don't pay a lot of attention to that. I should remove it from the form, but it's there. So when you get down here, I'm asking you to split things up by budget categories. And what are the budget categories? They have a drop down here. So we have the incentives, the contractor, consultant or subcontractors, equipment, materials and supplies, and miscellaneous. This is the same format your budget and your application is. So you should be able to go choose your budget category, describe what it is, and how much you're asking for reimbursement. This has a column for the first reimbursement and the second reimbursement. If you need more lines, you can do duplicate copies of this and just put Joe Farmer page 1, Joe Farmer page 2, however you need to do it. You can also just have consultant subcontractor and list out all the expenses that is for and give me a total. So you can do it either way. You can itemize it, or you can do it in just in the budget categories if you so choose. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, Monica, if you want to. There we go. So to submit, you need the reimbursement form, the PDF of the receipts and invoices, and your tracking documentation. And a note, all required surveys are required, or all required surveys required. I have a lot of required prior to reimbursements being mailed. So next page, please, Monica. So for the reporting side and obligations of your grants, we have an annual report that is due March 1st of every year. The template will be provided. This year it's in a SurveyMonkey template that I have emailed out to you and can send you again if you still need it. Our 2023 grantees have all completed the annual survey, which is exciting. 2024, I think, is about halfway done. A little bit late, but we'll still take your information. And one thing to note, if you have not finished your final report after your project is done and you submit a reimbursement, I will have to hold the check until that is done. That also comes into play with the reporting the ongoing reporting surveys from UW, the farm history survey and the management survey. We are going to hold payments until these surveys are completed because we need this information to continue the study moving forward. And that is my piece.
All right, I'm going to take over, and we're going to really hit the nail on the head with getting surveys in. So I wanted to kind of create this kind of graphic. I'm going to move on to data collection surveys. So when we're doing on-farm research and Monica's working through some analysis and trying to kind of come away with some takeaways from projects, we need a lot of information to make that work and to come away with the right messages. And so, you know, on the bottom here, the trial management information, that's kind of pretty clear cut. We need to there's a survey we're going to send out later in the year. That's going to gather information about what actually happened with your trial. And then trial data. This is some things like yield and soil analysis results that you're going to send in to us. But also we have these farm history and field history aspects of data collection. They may not always seem like they're pertinent to your project, but now that we've come to the end of some projects being completed, we're finding that, okay, it is really valuable to go back into these pieces of information, understand what the management history was on that field, or different aspects of the farm that may play into it. So that's just kind of giving us a better understanding of what the trials are trying to teach us. So we can go on to the next slide. So data collection surveys. They're kind of boring, but they're necessary pieces of these projects. And so we really want to hit home that these are portions of your project that are required by the contract that has been signed by the producer and the partners and DATCAP. And so they're really important pieces, and we don't want to understate that. So this year, if you're NOPP veteran, you've seen us use Microsoft Forms to do our surveys. You've seen us use Qualtrics to do our surveys. We're hopefully going into the final iteration of our surveys. We're going to do these in a web-based program called RedCap. And we have a data specialist in Extension that's helping us out with that. And so this is going to feed into a larger database to help us keep everything organized. So at 11:30, it's set up that the farm and field history surveys are going to be sent out to all the projects. If you're starting a brand new project this year, you're going to be sent a farm history survey and a field history survey for every single field that you have on your farm. These are unique survey links, and so you shouldn't be sharing them with somebody and be like, oh, you can use the same link to fill out your survey. Your link, your survey, okay? And so those are specific to you, but you can share these with your partners. So if Farmer John Doe is working with partner so-and-so from the county, you can both use that survey link to fill out that survey. We're going to set a hard deadline, get these done by April 4th. Again, they're going to be sent out in the next 15 minutes. And so I'd really encourage you to open those up and start filling them out, because if you have a trial this year and you know what field it's going on, you should be able to answer all those questions right away. There will also be a trial management survey, and that'll be sent out later in the season, sometime in summer. And that'll be asking about things that actually happen on your trial area. So I'm going to take control of the screen real quick, and I'm going to show you what the surveys look like when they come to you. So Okay, so if you can see, I have an email open. So this is what it's going to come to you looking like. I'm considered the farmer, and then Bethany is considered maybe one of my partners on my project. And it'll have the name of the project that is being asked about in this survey there, a due date, and then the name of the survey. So this is the field history survey. There's also going to be a farm history. So the farm history is just kind of what does your farm makeup look like? What kind of crops do you grow? Do you have livestock? What kind of um, uh, support tools do you use on your farm? So if you open up this link, it is going to bring you to your survey. And again, it has my name. I am the farmer on in question, and then the name of my project. And then it's going to ask you for a field name. So this is going to be whatever you happen to call that field. I call it, okay, this is Dad's field. Okay. And this is going to pop up at the top as well. So if you do have more than one field going into an NOPP trial this year, this is going to help you keep them separate. And so you're going to go through and fill out this survey. And you're able to save and return later. So you could click that button at the bottom, save it. You can X out of that screen. And then maybe a partner of yours goes in and is able to fill out the rest of the information that you didn't happen to have. And I think I'm not going to overload that, but I really encourage everybody to get those done as soon as possible. You don't have to worry about it anymore. You can always email me, call me with questions or concerns if something isn't working the way you think it should be. Let us know. And so, Monica, maybe you can share the slides again. Okay. I think we're good there. We can go on to the next one. Okay, so surveys. I think we've covered those pretty good. Community and outreach. So this is another portion of my position that I'm going to be focusing a lot of time on, is trying to create space for folks to interact with one another and be able to have this kind of peer-to-peer, farmer-to-farmer learning that we've seen is really effective for conservation practice adoption. And so if we really encourage anybody participating in NOPP to, host your own meetings, host field days, create handouts, share details of your project with folks that you interact with. We really encourage that. I'd love to be involved in that. If you need any help with that, reach out. Otherwise, just let us know that you're hosting or planning something like that so that we can help advertise for it too as well. And then creating space for folks involved in NOPP to share their projects. So this is something that we're going to be trying to do on an annual basis. It might look different as we kind of progress within the program and understand kind of what works best, how people want to share their information and things like that. So next page. And then some other resources that we want to be able to offer out. So we've been highlighting projects on social media, and then these end up on the DATCAP webpage as well. And so this is an opportunity where I reach out to farmers or project partners and let them tell me about what this on-farm research project means to them. And they share maybe some pictures with me, and then we share that out for others to read as they want. And then also an NOPP annual report. So this is different than the annual report that Susan had mentioned. Susan had talked about a report that grantees are required to fill out and submit back to UW and DATCAP. This is something that I've started creating once a year that kind of gives an overview of what NOPP has been up to in the last year or two. And so that's something that we're working on right now for 2024. And then educational materials. This is something that has, the gears have been rolling, but now that we're having data come in from the first project that wrapped up in 2024, We're going to start looking for those pieces of information that we can share out in educational materials going forward. So keep an eye out for things like that. And I think that's all I had.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks,
Yep.
Lindsay. I'm going to take over now and just talk a little bit about the basic of the research design, so we're all on the same page as far as vocabulary, and then some expectations and guidelines for data reporting and what that looks like. And first of all, I want to say we got 37 people here. That might be a record. I'm excited. Lots of new names, lots of new faces. Fun to see the program keep progressing. Okay, now back into the serious stuff. So research design. So most of these projects, you have a design kind of in mind when you applied, and I talked to a lot of you or the project leads on what these project designs look like. But for the most part, these are randomized complete block designs, meaning that we have all of our treatments, in this case, N rates. So in this example, we have 3 different N rates, and each N rate is occurring 4 times across the field, meaning it's replicated 4 times. And you'll see it's never in the same order, right? The zeros never always, between the 0 and the 100, or the 100 and 200. So that randomization gives us just that extra statistical piece that we're able to put a little more trust in the data and know that anything we see is actually due to the nitrogen effect and not just because of where it lands on the field or what rates it's next to. So like I mentioned a little bit, the replicate, that's that repeating treatment. And then the block is those repeating treatments grouped together. So we know that it's block 1, that's the north half of the field. That might be on a hill. Okay, we know that maybe we expect lower yields there. So just kind of having that background information when we see the data. And the treatment, that's the strip that the management is applied to. In this case, that's N rates. And then the plot is the unique strip. So every unique strip on your field will have a unique plot ID. So in this case, we have 3 rates replicated 4 times. That gives us 12 plots. And that's kind of most important when we're looking at yield. It's going to be across each of those individual plots. And that's unique to each strip. So we know that the 0N in block 1 is a different strip than the 0N in block 2. And we kind of can then use those pieces of information to trace back to where it came from on the field. So here's an example of an NOPP. I think this is their as applied, or this is their plot design after they planted. And you can see the blue dashed lines here are indicating the different blocks on the field. So we have 5 different rates occurring, 4 different spots across the field in those kind of like 4 quadrants. And then a lot of projects are going above and beyond and doing a randomized complete block design split plot, which essentially doubles the size of your trial, but you're also able to get another really valuable piece of information from this trial. So let's say in this example, let's say these blue plots are where manure was applied. So within each N rate, something else happened on half of that N rate. So we kind of have an additional layer there. But the rest of the vocabulary stays the same. The replicate, that repeating treatment. Block is that group of repeating treatments. So within each block, we have each N rate with each additional management factor. And then the plot is the unique strip. So because we're adding that extra piece, we're doubling our number of plots. So now in this example, we have 24 plots. And I know the vocabulary there can get kind of messy, but as long as you know kind of what that most finite layer is, that plot, and you have that ID down, that's really what makes or breaks where our data is coming from. So as far as data reporting, so within the next week or 2, I will be sending a data reporting template for each project. And within that, we'll have different tabs, one just with instructions on how I want you to fill out that reporting template. And then we have soil, different tabs for kind of every piece of data that you're collecting from your project. So if we take a closer look at those instructions, again, basing it off of our example in that last slide, this trial has manure, some soil data, and then of course yield. So we've learned a lot in data reporting in the last 2 years, and I think the most successful model is putting my email right on the analysis form as you're sending in samples, so that I can get those samples right from the lab. I have them. And then I'm not getting, full data. I'm not getting overloaded with 50 full data sets in December. I think this is kind of the best way to go about it. So again, when you're sending those analysis off, just put my email on that list so that I'm getting those results as well. But in order that I know kind of what results match to what plot, or what sample that went to the lab matches to what, I kind of need a key. So this data reporting template serves as that key. So here's an example where the individual that sent in the analysis kind of had the key right in as they labeled their sample. So I know exactly this sample came from block 4, no manure treatment. It's a pre-plant nitrate test, and it's a 0 to 1 depth. So you can include everything here, or you can, include it on that soil tab. I have the information of what I'm expecting to see from your trial, and you can add a column for lab analysis key and send that along. Just a reminder, all of the routine soil analysis and nitrate tests need to go through a DATCAP certified lab. That is a requirement of the program. And the list is found here. It can be found on the DATCAP website, easy Google search. And then any additional sampling you do, like if you're doing some other soil health measurements or maybe a Haney test, that can go to whatever lab you want to run that through. But the nitrate samples and the routine samples have to go through a DATCAP certified lab. So back to data reporting, thinking about the yield data. So this, one of those tabs on that reporting template I sent was that yield tab. And I will fill it out to the best of my knowledge of how many reps you have, what your treatment is, what your nitrogen rates are based on your application or any conversations I've had with you after that. And then the columns highlighted in yellow here are for you to fill out. So fill out your grower, what plot matches with what replicate and different treatment that you might have, and what nitrogen rate. So filling in that plot factor, so kind of serving as like the key for what's what. And then depending on how you harvest. So if you're harvesting with a weigh wagon, you want to put your harvested acre, the yield, just the pounds that was in your weigh wagon, and then this column will automatically calculate and adjust to bushels per acre. If you're harvesting with your combine, you already know your bushels per acre. You can just, put that information right here and override my automatic calculation. And then with your moisture percent, put that in this column, and then this column will automatically auto-populate with that yield corrected to 15.5% moisture. And make sure you know from your combine whether that's already automatically correcting for that moisture or not. I think that was kind of a big thing. I'm getting yield values. I'm like, okay, is this auto corrected? Is this just what the yield was itself? And it can happen both ways. So make sure you make note of that and fill in the respected column then. And then your test weight if you have that information as well. Another reminder, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I think that really is true when it comes to on-farm research. So when you're in the field, if you're doing anything, take pictures. It's important to see. Like in season, it's cool to see if you have any cover crop residue left, or maybe you're seeing some of those leaf firing on the lower leaves in certain reps or certain N rates and not in other N rates. So it's really valuable to have pictures. And when we're looking at the data, that can really help to fill in some of those holes of telling the stories, and especially when we're presenting the data. So just a reminder, I know it's hard to slow down and take pictures, but it's good to do it. And if you're in the field, take a picture, send it to me or Lindsay right away, email it to us right away, so then we have it. Some of the other resources available from the program. So this is on the DATCAP website. We have some more resources available, including a technical research guide, which gets a little bit more in depth into kind of the vocabulary on the plot layout, that stuff I was hitting on earlier, and what the sample requirements are of the program. So in this resources page, you can kind of find all of that information, as well as information for reimbursements. There's that technical research guide there. And then we also have my acting debut. We took a video for sampling that deep soil profile, that 1 to 2 foot sample with an extendable probe. So if that's something you haven't done before and you're like, how the heck do I do this? I think this is a quick 4-minute video that kind of gets into how to operate that probe and get a good sample. And other technical support that we offer. So if you're out in the field and you're sampling and you've got a lot to do, you're maybe short on help, feel free to give me a call. If I'm able to fit it in my schedule, I'm happy to come out, and it's kind of good for me to get an understanding of what the field looks like as well. And I'd rather do that on a day you're doing some work so I can help out. So feel free to, even if it's last minute, feel free to let me know, and I'm happy to get out when I can. We also have extra probes. We have a bunch of these extendable probes. So if you're short on those, let me know and we can work that out. We also have a drone, and I'm a certified pilot. Lindsay is as well. And it's good. Like I said, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And on these drones, sometimes getting these pictures is the only way to know if you had like a missed nitrogen application. So it's good to get these photos as well. So if there's a specific time, you're like, oh, I think I might have some unevenness in my field, let me know, and I can get out and try to get drone pictures of as many fields as possible. And again, technical support, I am always free for a phone call if you have questions. If you run into something, the co-op blanket applied something over my field, what do I do with my N rates now? Just give me a call. I'd rather we work in real time to figure it out than sit with the data and think, oh no, what the heck happened here? So I cannot stress that enough. Add my contact to your phone. And give me a call whenever you have questions on anything. And if you have someone else soil sampling your fields, or if you're paying for outside help on that, feel free to share my contact information with them as well. And I'm more than happy to provide direction on sampling or anything. Yeah, with that, any questions for myself, Lindsay, or Susan? And I want to thank everyone for being involved. I know these projects are a lot of work, but it's really cool. It's a really great program. And we're getting a lot of cool data from this.
I will say that it sounds like surveys were just sent out. So farmers involved in a project this season, and then maybe one partner was copied on that. And so if anyone didn't receive something, let me know. Any questions? This is the time. If you have a question, there are like 4 other people who have the same question.
Okay, I'll go. Nice job so far, all 3 of you. Appreciate the insight. So some of us are on rather large, like statewide spread out projects with a lot of people involved. From your experience at NOPP and other teams that have done similar, larger scale type protocols, what's your top 2 or 3 points of advice for setting up for success as we get going here?
I'll start from the administrative side. Yeah, communication, having a point person, having one person who's going to take the reins on getting a reimbursement in, checking that reporting's done, that kind of thing, ushering, as you've done, Chris, ushering contracts through. So having a point person is a very helpful thing. And yeah, like Lindsay said, communication amongst the group.
All right, thanks for that. Communication, what's so hard about that, right?
We've all mastered that by now.
Right, exactly. And everyone's always available.
Mm-hmm. We have a few people on the call who have been involved in very large NOPP groups. I wondered if any of them might have advice. I'm not going to call them out by name, but I can see both of them on their videos.
Hi, Chris. Yeah, we've had one here for the first year. So yeah, I'd definitely agree with the communication side. I think another piece, because you've got the farmer, it's not enough to have that extension component, or if you're working with a consultant or the land conservation department or who's ever in kind of spearheading the project. I think the main thing is the farmer understands the land, or the landowner, if it's rented land, that's another wrinkle to it, that they understand what you're going to be doing out there, that they understand exactly what Monica and Lindsay just went through, especially Monica's design part of it, because that replication can be a stickler in some places where it's the layout definitely has to be set up ahead of time. As far as being spread out across the state, yeah, I think it's easier now. I think with communications, but that doesn't mean the message is clear. So we all interpret things differently. So just continue to over communicate than not enough.
Thanks, Jer. Appreciate it.
One thing that I would
Yeah.
add, we worked on a couple different trials this last year, and just from past experience, one thing that's helped is and Monica said she was maybe going to share something out like this, but we had one developed kind of internally, is have a work plan, planned what our steps are that we need to conduct throughout the year, soil sampling or plant sampling or nitrogen applications and harvest, and being able to fill in those different dates. And if you have that for each trial across multiple locations, you can kind of follow the progress. Also helps for recording data, those times of events throughout the season and making sure we didn't miss something. So it's just something to kind of keep track of your progress on the different trials throughout the season and be able to revert back to that work plan.
Thank you, Tristan.
I think that's a great tip for, however big your project is. If it's one farmer on the project, having that working plan is a great way to kind of track your progress and see that you've checked all the boxes and hit all the data collection points that you needed to.
Yeah, and as
Wonderful.
part of the application, you had to fill out a work plan, so it's easy enough to fill that, pull that back up. I think with the applications, it's sometimes easy to be like, oh, we got funded, forget those. But I think that's a useful piece of information. And I'll also send, like I said, I'll send those like data reporting templates, which will include all of the data that I'm expecting from you. So if there's also any differences there, we can hammer that out, now before things start to get really busy. And I'll be sending those out in the next few weeks.
Any other questions or pieces of advice from folks who have been doing this for a year or two? Oh, Susan, looks like there's a question in the.
Yeah, I saw that, Jace. I'm actually
Okay.
in DocuSign right now, and I will get something to you shortly. Thanks for letting me know.
Wonderful. I posted the DATCAP NOPP webpage link in the chat. That's a great one to bookmark in your web browser. That has our contact information on it and some other resources that we touched on in this call. I'd reiterate that, call, text, or email us with any questions or concerns. If you're out in the field and you're like, shoot, what was I doing? What was I supposed to do? What scale was I sampling this on? What was the plan? Give us a call. We've gotten those before, so you certainly won't be the first one to do that. We are your resources as well.
Yeah, and I think another thing to keep in mind is it's not as rigid. If things go off the road a little bit from what you had in your application, up to a certain extent, that's fine. It's on from research that those things happen. So just communicating that is totally fine. And there's a lot of flexibility within the research and within the budgets a little bit too. So.
That extends to your budget as well. If you find you need to put more money towards sampling in one area, or we can work with you to make that happen as well.
All right. Well,
thank you everyone
is this
for
a record?
taking time. Yeah, this is great.
Yes. All right. Well, that is our kickoff to the 2025 NOPP